Hi all, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I have a horrific story to share with you out of Dixon, Tennessee, where police say they received a 911 call for a fire, but when they responded to the home on the 1200 block of North Charlotte Street, they came upon a nightmare scene that would shake them to their core. A mom, laying on the floor in the burning home, barely clinging to life, bleeding and burnt, and her husband standing over her, waiting for her to die. Tessa Trotter made plans to take her two young boys, ages 5 and 8, to go visit with her twin sister and her mother after work on July 1st of 2024. She was going to go home after work, pick the boys up, and head over to her sister's house just minutes away for a fun evening together. But Tessa's husband, Zachary Mowell, had other plans for her and their boys that evening. He was going to murder her, and he was going to force his two young sons to watch. And now that Tessa has survived that horrific night and is fighting in the hospital to make a full recovery to return home to her forever traumatized young sons, she's spoken out about that night, stating that she never saw the attack from her husband coming, and that in all the years they were together, he never physically harmed her. He was only ever verbally abusive. But that night was different. That night, her husband wasn't just looking to physically harm her. He was looking to end her life. According to reports, when Tessa arrived home from work that day, Mowell attacked her just moments after she entered their home, grabbing her arm and driving a kitchen knife into her back that caused her to drop to the floor. She said her sons were standing by the front door, witnessing the attack, but she was unable to get to her feet, to get to them, and to get them out of the house. Then, as her boys screamed for Mowell to stop, she said he began punching her in the face over and over and over, and continued stabbing her all over her body. As she screamed for her boys to run, she said their POS father yelled at them, telling them not to move and to stand there and watch as he brutally attacked their mother. Tessa was stabbed 9 times in the neck, back, and chest, and Mowell punched her in the face over 30 times. Then, as if that wasn't enough, he poured gasoline on part of her body, left a trail of gasoline out the door, and set the house on fire as he took his boys and went outside, leaving their mother inside to die. But hearing me tell this god-awful story doesn't nearly do it justice. You need to hear it directly from Tessa herself, who survived that night by the grace of God. According to Tessa's sister, by the time Tessa was life-flighted to the hospital, she had 9 stab wounds. She had 3 in her neck, she had multiple in her back, and multiple in her chest. Her whole right leg had 3rd-degree burns. Her lung was collapsed. Her ribs were broken, and her whole face was swollen and bruised.
She is alive to be a mom to those traumatized little boys. And earlier, I had a chance to speak with Tessa and her mom, Tina Trotter, from Tessa's hospital bed. It was Tessa's very first interview, and here's some of our conversation. Do you have many memories of what happened to you, of that attack?
I have. I remember everything from the attack.
You remember everything. Have you been able to recount all of that to the police?
Right now, I haven't talked to the police about it. I'm supposed to soon.
Can you tell me what you remember from that day?
I remember just got home from work and I was going to take my boys to my sister's house. And I could tell he was upset when I got home. And the first thing he did, he just grabbed me by the arm and he just stabbed me right in the back. And I just went straight limp on the floor.
And what happened next?
He picked me up and laid me across his lap. And that's when he just started punching me in the face. And I sat there and just counted, and my boys are right at the front door. And he just started stabbing me again in the sides and in the throat. And that's when I held onto my throat, and I remember my boys are just at the door, and I'm yelling for my Otis to go outside and just yell for 911. And he told him not to go outside.
He told them to stay where he could see, those children could see what was happening.
Yeah, he told them to stay while they're screaming, "Please don't kill Mommy. Please, Daddy. Please, Daddy, stop stabbing Mommy."
What eventually happened after that moment?
He brought me to the kitchen. And that's when he stabbed me a couple more times. I remember he stabbed me the one time right in the throat. That's when I'm just holding on. And he threw me kind of in the floor. And that's when he asked for my phone. And I guess that's when he texted my sister that I was on the way to her house. And he poured gasoline all over the side of my body. And he kept telling me, "You're going to die in this house."
Where were the boys at this point?
I'm guessing the boys at this point, he put them in his trunk already because I didn't see them, but he was still inside. And that's when he lit me on fire first, and he watched me burn. He watched me. And that's when he drew a line of gasoline out of the house and he lit it on fire.
And he stood and watched?
Yeah, he stood and watched me and kept telling me I was going to die in this house slowly.
Tessa, did you believe at that moment you were going to die right there?
I did. I thought that was it. And the only thing I was thinking about were my boys. What would happen to them?
Do the boys know any of this, what happened after they were taken out of the house and put in the car? Do they know any of these other details?
They knew that he caught me on fire, that he burned my legs. They know that. They saw the burn.
What else have you been able to explain to them? What else have you been able to say to them in the wake of all of this?
Just other than just Mommy's going to get stronger and Mommy will be home.
Have the children asked any questions that you are able to answer or that you aren't able to answer?
No, they haven't. They haven't asked any.
Have they asked where their dad is?
They know. They knew from the straight that he was in jail, and they knew why.
Have they indicated at all that they ever want to see him again?
No, they don't even say his name. They don't even call him Dad. They just say he. Sometimes they do say monster.
They call him a monster.
Yes, they do.
Tessa, do you have any idea what set him off that day?
I have no clue. Like, we've been together 9 years, and he never had any physical abuse towards me other than like mentally, but I don't know. I know I asked him for a divorce 2 months prior, but I wouldn't have never thought he'd do this.
And he'd never been physically abusive before this unbelievable, unspeakable event.
No, he's never showed any signs, never raised his hand, never did any of that.
Have you had any opportunity or any will at all to speak with him since this happened?
At first, I wanted to know why he did this, but now I don't want to see him. I don't want to talk to him. He's not part. He's more than dead to me now.
Tina, it's just remarkable to hear what your daughter Tessa has been through, and you are stalwart. I mean, you have been an incredible support to her. How did you find out, and when did you find out what had happened that day?
Well, like she said, we was going to her twin sister's house to visit my granddaughter. And Tessa was supposed to bring the boys. That was the plan. And he knew that. And I went on to her twin sister Tori's house. And me and Tori waited, and we waited. And then Tori got the text saying on the way, and her twin knew there was something wrong. And so we waited about 40 minutes or something like that. And I said, well, I'm going to go down her street. And I pulled up on it. And she was already life flighted.
She had already been life flighted.
Yeah, by the time I got there, yes.
How did you find out the details of what had happened?
Tessa.
Tessa told you herself what had happened?
She told me everything. She remembers everything. Everything from her seeing the knives in his pocket, from her seeing the gasoline, brand new gasoline can on the counter. She told me when I first seen her, when I got to Vanderbilt, she looked at me, she said, "He tried to kill me, Mama. I thought I was going to die." And she continues to tell me she remembers.
You've been by Tessa's bedside since the beginning, and you've been watching her recovery. Seeing you both today is such a surprise because I saw you a few weeks ago, and Tessa was really struggling. But you must be so proud of her recovery.
Yeah, she's remarkable. She's remarkable. We have a lot of family support, not only myself, but her twin, then her older sister and her brother. But she's pushing herself forward. She wants to be home with her boys.
Tina, did you ever have a feeling that her now ex, her estranged husband, could have done anything like this or could have been violent in any way with her? Did you ever have a red flag? Did you see a red flag? Have a sneaking suspicion? Anything?
Never.
Was he ever emotionally abusive with Tessa?
She would tell me stuff, but he would never show it in front of me. He would never. He was a different person in front of us, the family. She always told me he was manipulative, but we never seen it.
How did Tessa survive that horrific surprise attack? Again, by the grace of God. As she lay dying in her burning house, two men, heroes, I call them angels, pulled up to a house across the street. When they pulled up, they said they saw the smoke coming from inside the house across the street, and they could see the trail of fire coming out the door. So they immediately jumped into action, and one man called 911 while the other ran over to the house to see if anyone was inside. I'm not going to tell you their story. I'll let them tell you. because you need to hear from one of the heroes himself how he came face to face with Tessa's husband while trying to save her from her burning home when he returned to finish her off.
Police in Dixon, Tennessee, and Tessa herself say that young wife and that young mother was very nearly killed by her own husband, Zachary Mowell. They say that Mowell admitted to punching Tessa 30 times in the face, stabbing her 9 times in the torso, breaking all of her ribs, collapsing a lung, and then giving her third-degree burns. All while their 5- and 8-year-old sons pleaded with their dad, "Don't kill mommy." And how exactly did Tessa Trotter survive that night? How did she survive the onslaught? By the heroics of the 2 complete strangers who happened to see the smoke and then rush into a burning house to pull Tessa out to safety. She still hasn't met the 2 men who saved her, but we did. We met them today, and they joined me earlier for this exclusive interview.
As we backed into the driveway, I noticed a vehicle leaving, and as I turned towards the front door, I just kind of scoured across their yard, and I saw the front door open with flames coming through it and a little trail of flames out of the front door down through the steps. My dad and I both said fire about the same time, and as soon as that came out, I did jolt across the street. I ran up the steps, stubbed out with my feet, the fire on the doorstep, noticed the flames inside, and then asked, was there anyone in the house? She responded, yes. I asked her, was she okay? She said no, she had been stabbed. I then proceeded to try to go in, and the flames were so big and the smoke was so bad, I just couldn't breathe. So I came back out, noticed a hose right there by the front deck or front patio, whatever, turned it on, ran up to the front door and just started dousing what I could reach with the hose. Tried to go back in, smoke again, inhalation. I couldn't breathe, couldn't find her, couldn't see her, could only hear her. Made a third attempt. On that third attempt, when I couldn't see her or find her, I asked her where she was. She said by the back door. I asked her, was it unlocked? She said she thought so. So I ran around, opened the back door, and there she was laying. As I got to the back door, she just pleaded for her life, said she didn't want to die, asked me to help her. And of course, I was scared. I'm looking at a woman laying there face first in a pool of blood and her body is smoking. Yeah, I hesitated before grabbing her, but she lifted her left arm. And when she did, I just grabbed it and pulled. I wasn't very successful at that moment. I told her, I said, ma'am, I'm trying the best I can do. Give me your other hand. She handed me her right hand, and I just pulled her until her face was almost to the threshold of her back door, and they had a back bench back there, and I sat on the bench with her, and she just kept saying she didn't want to die, and I asked her if she could hear the sirens coming for her, and she said, yes, I do hear them. And I said, well, my dad's on the phone with 911. You're going to be all right. And then about that time, Silhouette came through the house, which was the husband, stepped over her body and looked me in my eyes and asked me, was she still alive? That's when I got up and walked down the steps. And about that time, Officer Cheney with the PD, he came around the back of the house.
I mean, it's really a remarkable development that you saw that husband, Zachary Mowell, coming back through the house and asking you if she was still alive. When you told him that, yes, she was still alive, did he have any reaction or any sort of visible facial expressions that you noticed?
Kind of like he just kind of sucked his lip, kind of made that noise like dadgummit, you know? And I didn't give him any more. I didn't give him.
Yeah, I just want to be really clear. He made a sound as though he was disappointed to hear that she was still alive?
Very, very much. He didn't. I don't recall a smirk. I don't recall a smile. I just remember a noise of him kind of sucking his teeth or his tongue, whatever that would be. And all I remember thinking is, I need to get away from this fella because I have messed his plan up. And that's when I proceeded down the steps.
So you had fear for your own safety, Clay, when you encountered him?
At that moment, yes, ma'am. after him doing that and then coming back through the flames in the house like that, or the fire through the house like that? Yes, ma'am. I did a little bit.
I can imagine. I mean, I can't really imagine what you've gone through, to be honest with you. Ralph, did you see any sort of encounter between Zachary Mowell and the police officers who showed up on the scene?
Well, the first officer that arrived, when he pulled in, Zachary pulled in just seconds after he did. They both got out of the vehicles and started walking in. And Zachary was literally less than a step behind the police officer. As he walked past me, he had I have a term for it, but I'm not going to say it, but it was kind of a smirkish looking grin when he walked by me and he walked right in behind the police officer. Police officer went one direction, he went to the other direction. And that's when he got back where Clay and she was laying.
Did either of you hear him say to the police officers, "It was me, I did it"?
I didn't.
And all I remember is when I got to the bottom of the steps, Officer Cheney came by me up the steps, walked past him, looked at her, asked him who he was, and he said, I'm the husband. I need to speak to you by yourself. I asked me who I was. I told him part of the 911 call. He asked me for my ID, gave it to him. I proceeded around the front. Maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes later, he was being walked around handcuffed.
Just today, Tessa was able to reunite with those two little boys at her hospital bed. In fact, I think it was actually yesterday that she saw them for the very first time. And I'm wondering what you both think about that, knowing that she's had this unbelievable reunion with her babies.
It's awesome.
I just hope they can all get through it and be able to function normally. Because a tragedy like this, you hear stories of how it messed in some other situation, something similar, how it messed somebody up for life. But I'm hoping that these kids can, in a few years, just totally not even think about it, or hopefully before then, for a few years.
Is there something that you'd both like to say to Tessa?
Well, I know we don't know each other, and we've lived across the street for some years, but I'm glad to see you're okay.
Yeah. I know I've seen you around town or driving at Walmart or someplace, and then I'm just glad you're in the hospital, getting taken care of, and hopefully everything will get back to as normal as it can be in a very short time.
Listen, I know that the two of you will probably tell me that you don't think you are, but I think you are both heroes. You have rescued this woman, and you have saved two little boys from possibly being orphaned, because it is possible their father will go to prison either for a very long time or the rest of his life. And so the fact that they have their mother is really attributed to both of you. Do you feel that? Do you understand the remarkable thing that you both did?
I feel it. It's kind of surreal, and it's just, I don't think myself as a hero. I'm just a dad that tried to do something to help someone like a dad should do.
And Clay, you're sitting there beside your dad. You know, they'll have a parent because of you.
Yeah, it doesn't really hit home till right now, I guess. I don't ever look at myself as a hero. I've kind of been the farthest thing from a hero anyone would ever think of, honestly. But it feels good. It's at the same time, it's like, why does this evil even have to exist, you know? But I'm just glad she can make it.
This story is unreal. I can't even think about what her boys witnessed that night. I can't. It's too much. And reports say Tessa may never walk again as a result of the horrific attack. Hell, she wouldn't even be alive if it wasn't for those two heroes who were sent to save her. One coming directly face to face with pure evil. A sight I'm sure he will never be able to forget. An angel facing down a demon. Mull was arrested and charged with attempted first-degree murder, aggravated arson, aggravated assault, domestic related, and domestic assault, and is currently being held in the Dixon County Jail on $765,000 bond. A bond he shouldn't have at all, in my opinion. I'll be praying for Tessa to recover as well as she is able to, so she can return home to her boys. And an overabundance of my prayers will be going for her precious boys and her loving family who are caring for them. How will they ever be okay after what they witnessed? I got nothing. Absolutely nothing. Thank you for taking the time to listen to their nightmare story. And if you have any prayers to spare, I'm sure they would appreciate them. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you on my next video.